And when Madeline was testifying to the fact that her year at His Hill was so significant, I was like, all of my kids need to go. If this girl who grew up here is saying how significant that year was for her, then who doesn't need to be here?
Welcome to this week's episode of the His Hill Podcast. My name is Kelly Doherty, and I'm your host. Today, I have with me a couple of friends from church, and they also have a connection with His Hill in that they're parents of, they've had several kids come to His Hill. And so I wanted to bring them in and just introduce them to you, hear their testimony, and then hear about what the Lord's done in their family's life by their children being students at His Hill. So with me is Jeff and Heather Morris. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate you doing this. It was such, like I said before we got started, really short notice, but you were both real easy about it. I appreciate that. Just curious, is there any nerves about it?
I don't really.
I do a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, most people are pretty nervous when they come in, and then after about a minute or two, they realize, oh, wait a minute, this is really simple. Yeah, it is. We're just going to sit and talk. But and I just kind of sense that from you, so I appreciate that. Okay, so let's do this. Just let the listeners get to know you a little bit. Why don't you tell us how you came to know Jesus, and then we'll maybe talk about how you guys met and ended up in Comfort. And not only did we go to the same church, we live in the same town, and we're not really that far apart either. Yeah. As the crow flies.
Right, yeah.
Okay, Heather, let's start with you. Heather, where are you from? And tell us a little bit about your family background, how you came to know Jesus.
All right. My mom and dad both grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And they kind of were, I don't think my mom's family was Christian. My dad's was, and they got married just right after high school, and they were both in the hippie generation. So we watched the Jesus Revolution recently, and I was like, that's my mom and dad. So that's pretty fun. But when they were young adults, probably when I was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years old, they both came to know the Lord in a pretty neat way. And so I grew up with them really loving the Lord and making decisions based on trying to please the Lord. So that was a good growing up. We lived in Colorado for a while, for a long time. We had a little bit of time, maybe 5-6 years up in the Pacific Northwest. My dad went to Multnomah Bible School.
Okay.
So we lived up there, and he was in the ministry at a camp. So I got to live at a camp for 3 or 4 years of my life, which was awesome. And then we moved back to Colorado to be closer to my grandparents. And that's where I met Jeff. So after high school, we got married. I grew up loving Jesus. So I think one of those classic 4 or 5 years old, as soon as you recognize, oh, I love Jesus. Yes, I want Jesus in my heart. So I do remember, I don't remember ever a time without him. Okay. So that's a good thing. But I do remember I think I was 25 years old and we were up working at a camp in Colorado, Camp Red Cloud. And I had Emmy, our oldest daughter, and I was really isolated up there. It was out in the middle of nowhere. And emotionally, I was really struggling spiritually. And I started having a lot of troubles just with my emotional health and started, reading the scriptures but all the promises, I kept wondering, are those for me? Are those promises really? Can I hold on to all those promises? The righteous, the ones who are saved, those who belong to him. And I started thinking, is that really me? And so the Lord, I was 25 years old. The Lord started having to do some work. I don't know, conversion. I don't know. But it was just good of the Lord I needed to know for sure that I belonged to him. And so through that, I remember going through the process and really at a conference in Denver, I think we went as a staff, and it was a women's conference. And I was listening to a speaker, and at the end she gave the whole, if you've made a decision to follow Jesus, or if the Lord's doing any work in your life, stand up or raise your hand or whatever. And I had never done that in my life. Okay. And so I raised my hand and I was like, yes, I belong, and I think that was that was good.
That was
I needed
confirmation
that.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and from then on, I haven't questioned
Okay.
that relationship. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's my story.
Thank you. Jeff.
So my parents both grew up in the Methodist Church, and my dad would tell you that of all the years that he was in the Methodist Church, he has some benign story about, the strongest thing he learned, and it had nothing to do with the Bible. So they both grew up in it, and I remember when I was young, I'm the youngest of three. I was probably early elementary age, something like that. And I can vaguely remember going to the Methodist Church. This was in Arlington, Texas. And at some point, I think Dad just got frustrated with it, and it was like, this is just a waste of time.
Really?
And he finally recognized it, and so they left. And some friends of theirs who I think had also been at the Methodist Church, they were talking to them, and they said, man, we're going to this Bible church. It's like, it's a whole different thing. And so Dad's like, yeah, whatever. And so they went, and it was interesting. The thing that had the biggest impact on my dad, he's been in, designs custom homes now, but he was in architecture stuff and was involved with buildings and things. Well, this church had, he was looking at, hey, this is a nice building they built, like, yeah, they built it. He was like, well, yeah, they had somebody build it. It's like, no, the people in this church got together and they built this church. And that was one of the biggest. He was like, if these people can get together and do this and not kill each other, that's something impressive. And so I think my mom was I think she'd been in Bible study fellowship, and I think she was either a believer or on her way.
Okay.
And Dad, through some time there at that church and starting to hear the truth and actually hear the gospel preached, became a believer. And I can remember being, I don't know, probably 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, somewhere in there, probably 3rd or 4th. And I can remember being at some sort of something at church and being told or hearing, kind of the gospel and recognizing, yeah, it was that, kind of fire insurance sort of, I need that, and I can remember being in the car, getting out and walking out to the mailbox at our house and thinking and saying in my, heart, Jesus, I want you to come into my heart, and that was, and that was the beginning for me. And kind of like Heather says, throughout my years, specifically coming so we moved to Bernie in the summer before I went into my freshman year in high school. And so my freshman and sophomore years, I was, pretty good kid, but not really, I wasn't really dedicated to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it was the summer between my sophomore and junior years, I went up to the camp in Colorado and worked for the summer. I was there all summer. And that was
the camp that we both, okay.
Yeah, Camp Red Cloud that we both worked at and eventually worked at before we moved back here. But anyway, that summer, really, the Lord got a hold of me, and I came back and I made some big changes. I still had plenty of, I was still a sinner, no question, and I was still struggling with things, but I do remember that my first year out of high school was kind of a tough year because a lot of my friends had left, and I was Mom had wanted me to go to college, so I went to college some, but I hated it, didn't want to be there, and but I remember driving in on I-10 to UTSA. And remember just saying, Lord, if I just decided I don't believe in you, if I decided there's nothing, what difference would it make?
Okay.
And I remember thinking, so if that's what I decide, that means I can't say, I've got a test today, Lord, help me. I started to recognize how much I knew he was there and accepted the fact that he was there, just took it for granted.
Yeah, that's
because he was such a part of me. And so I think for me, that was kind of that turning point of, this is mine. It's not just my mom and dad's faith, but this is mine. So that was the beginning of that.
Okay.
So yeah,
And that was what age?
that was probably 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And now you guys met in Oregon, right?
No, Colorado.
In Colorado, but you both have Multnomah
Right.
connection.
So yeah, the Multnomah connection for me was, so after we'd been married for a couple of years, we moved back down here. Heather was going to go to school, and
Because tuition was cheaper in Texas at that point than it was in Colorado. So
right. So we moved down here, and during that year, it was that I've never heard the Lord's voice, but it was that still small voice saying, "You need to go to Bible school."
Okay.
And it's really funny to be sitting here at his hill, being that I was in Bernie, Texas, and saying you need to go to Bible school, when I wasn't planning on being a pastor or a youth pastor or any of those things that you would normally think this is why a guy who's almost 25 is going to go to Bible school.
Yeah.
And so when it came to it, I basically knew two schools that taught the Bible, Dallas Theological Seminary and Multnomah, because of her dad. She has an aunt that also went there, and then there was a pastor that we were under in Colorado. He had been there.
Okay.
And so it was like, I know that they are an undergrad kind of a program. So I basically said, Lord, I did really poorly that first year of college because I just didn't care. So I'm not sure if they'll accept me anyway, but I'm going to apply. If they accept me, we'll go.
Okay.
So
let's go to Portland.
yeah. So we went.
What year was that?
So that was 97. No, that was 92. 92.
Yeah.
Okay.
97 is when we left. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And did you have children yet?
No.
No, we
Not
had Emmy right at the end.
Okay.
Right before we left.
And how many kids? Is it 6?
We got 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's 3 boys, 3 girls,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Okay. And what's the oldest and youngest? What are the ages?
So Emmy just turned 26.
26.
Jolie, who's sitting here with us, is 11.
11. Okay. So wow, you guys have got quite an age gap there, age span.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of different things that as parents you've had to deal with. That almost different generations almost.
Well, we tell Lily and Jolie that they didn't get the same parents that the older kids got.
It's totally true.
Yeah, we're older and we don't move the same. And
We're better in some ways, and we're
Yeah.
worse than others. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to get down on the floor and wrestle with the boys, and it's just this pile, and it was a lot of fun. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. If I'm gonna get down on the floor, it's to stretch my back.
Well, that's it. I hadn't thought about it till I was sitting here and I was thinking about your kids in the age span.
Yeah.
That really, you have had to deal with different kinds of things because of different times that our society would be in.
Right.
Cell phones,
Yeah.
iPads,
Yeah.
well, all of it.
One of the things that that kind of get lost in all that was we were married for over 6 years before Emmy came along.
Okay.
So we were trying to get pregnant and weren't able to for a while. So there's, which was a blessing. It was neat that we got to spend those years, just the two of us. And then Emmy came along, and then it was another 6 years before the twins came. And then it was 3 years, every 3 years until Jolie.
Wow.
So, yeah.
We were married, Arlene and I, for 6 years before we had Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
And we, looking back on it, we can say that it was really good for a lot of reasons.
Right.
But one of them was it gave us an opportunity to watch a lot of parenting and to think, okay, not going to do that.
Not that.
That was good.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot easier to do that when you don't have your own kids. And then you get yours and they're like, hey, wait, where was the plan for this one? Because
This isn't working like we said it was going to.
Or you're realize that you apologize to all those people that you
After your first child, you think you've got this down.
Oh my!
And then the second child, dares to have a different personality.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and then the third one has a different, and then the fourth one does.
Yeah.
And then it's 15 years later, and you have a different personality, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And then, and as you get older, you're maturing, and
You hope so.
yeah, we do hope so.
Physically, at least.
But then, do you find that the older you got, that you were learning to wait on the Lord more with your kids?
Well, there's no question that we are more patient with our kids than we were.
Okay.
Yeah, that is certainly true. Yeah, I don't know whether I would say one way or the other on waiting on the Lord, but yeah, just being older and kind of having different perspective, I know that we're a bit more chill about a lot of things with the younger kids than, we've had to apologize to Emmy a number of times.
The guinea pig.
The guinea pig.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now you've had 3 of the 6 go to Bible school.
Yeah.
Emmy being the first. What year
Yep.
was she here?
I was thinking about that.
Was it like 2010,
She was born in
2011?
97. So
So it should have been roughly 2015.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's what I'm
2016,
guessing.
something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it seems like it was a lot further back than that. But
Yeah,
anyway.
no.
Now, what was, and then the twins just finished their
First year.
Yep.
first year.
Yep.
Yeah. Sam and Andrew. And they're both wanting to stay for a second year.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
so they're praying about that right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, tell us, and just for the listeners, if you're hearing noise, it's because we're in the middle of camp, and there's people outside the door. So anyway, that's what's going on there. So what is the process of thinking through this? Because Bible school is not it's not a common decision for people after high school.
Right.
And it very much can be trying on parents. And I know this hasn't been the case for you guys, but I know that for a lot of parents, it really rocks their world because this is not the plan they've had for their kids. But what for you guys, what was the process with this, with Emmy and now with the boys?
Well, I don't remember it necessarily with Emmy. This is just me, but I know that when it was really interesting when Tylen and Madeline, right?
Right, yeah. My daughter and
getting
son-in-law.
the right ones
Yeah.
put together.
Yeah.
When they joined the church a few years back, and as the elders, we had them come in and give their testimony. And when Madeline was testifying to the fact that her year at His Hill was so significant, I was like, all of my kids need to go. If this girl who grew up here is saying how significant that year was for her, then who doesn't need to be here, right? So for me, and that was, we were positive toward it. With Emmy, I think we knew she was not inclined to go to college.
Right. Well, and I remember we had a conversation, I don't know, before our kids had even graduated, before Emmy had even graduated. And I remember you hear all the people saying, oh, save for college. And, you need to save so you can send your kids to college and blah, blah, blah. And I remember having a conversation with Jeff and looking, I was like, we're never going to have enough money to send all our kids to college. We could save. I mean, if we could save, even if we could save, we wouldn't have enough.
That would take a lot.
Right. But I remember telling, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have enough that we could send each of them to His Hill for a year? And that would be a good start for them. And that was before any of them had graduated or, and it's just been neat that the Lord has provided so far for us to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
it's just a cool.
Talking about providing, 5.5 years ago, I started my own business and we're doing a little better than we were or whatever. But when Emmy was going to school, I was still working, for the home builder. And you talk about, it's not cheap to do His Hill.
Right.
It's not ridiculously expensive by any stretch, but it's not like the money just, boom, there it is.
Right.
And I think Emmy, had been working a little bit, and I think she paid a little bit of it. My dad helped out a little bit, but the vast majority was us. And I was just amazed because it was like, okay, the year before, that amount of money was not laying around. The year after, that amount of money was not laying around.
Wow.
The Lord provided very clearly for Emmy to be able to be here. So it was just so cool to see this is where she needed to be and He'll take care of it.
Yeah. One of my, I've heard and have seen, having been on staff for so many years, that happen. I remember one girl was here as a first year, and she told us, I believe the Lord would have me be here for a second year.
Right.
And then she said, but I don't know how that's possible because we just don't have the money.
Right.
But she says, but I am convinced that the Lord wants me to be here. So I trust him.
Yeah.
And the next day she went into the lounge, just to the mailboxes there. And now, this is, the Torchbearer campus. You've got nothing but students
Right.
and staff that live on a Torchbearer salary, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
And she was staggered. She pulled out of her box, thousands of dollars were put into that box. And, it's just, and we don't know where
That's
it came
amazing.
Yeah.
from.
Right.
I mean,
Nobody's ever said it.
somebody knows, but,
Right.
but it's just how the Lord does take care of us, and we sell him short
Yeah.
in so many
absolutely.
things in life.
Right.
Right.
But it just seems like money is a big thing for us.
It
you know?
is.
Yeah, if it's not there, we're not gonna spend it if it's not there. But
Right.
that's faith, is walking,
Yeah.
trusting. Okay, Lord, if you have that for us, then we'll just keep moving forward in
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Hudson Taylor, I was just reading it this morning to the family and our employees, that something that he once said, and I'm going to butcher it. I wish I had it here with me. But he said something to where, if it's God's will not lack God's enabling.
Right.
And, so we need to start with him.
Right.
We're told, the writer of Hebrews, fix your eyes on Jesus.
Right.
Right.
And and then trust him. And he says that right after he lists all these people in chapter 11 who live by faith and what the Lord did as they by faith, it says,
Right.
walked in what the Lord was doing.
Yeah.
And so it starts there. It
So
starts
often we reverse that,
Yes.
right?
Right.
I have these means. What can I do with
Right.
Right.
this, instead of, Lord, what do you want me to do with
yeah.
what you're going to provide?
What do you want me to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And
it's his life.
let me go do that.
Right.
And the resources aren't here. Let me go do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that well. I was going to say, when it came to Bible school and us being in Portland, it was funny because about 2 to 3 years into it, I went, okay, I think I've accomplished what the Lord brought me here to do. But he kept providing, and it was just Heather and I, when we got to Portland, we both within the first month got jobs that we kept the whole time we were there.
Okay.
And each semester, the money was there for the next semester. And, it wasn't like we had a lot left over, but we always had enough. And it was like, well, I might as well finish up because why not?
I will get a degree that I'm not really going to use for anything practical.
He hadn't given us any different direction. So it was like, this seems like the logical thing. Just stay here and finish it out. And, so anyway.
So you did finish it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I actually got a 4-year degree, which was one of the coolest things about that was it was a big deal to my mom. Because my 2 older siblings, that was not going to ever happen. And so it was kind of cool that she actually got one of her kids to go to school and finish up. So,
yeah, we both had degrees from Bible colleges, and I used to tell people when we were full-time here, for years I told people that, because it bugs me. I'll just show my cards. It bugs me that so many parents insist on their kids going to college,
right.
because that's what you have to do.
Right.
And when you look at the statistics of you look at the debt that they incur, and we won't even go into the politics of that right now.
Right.
But the debt that they incur, and then the whether they get their degree or not.
Right.
It's not like, well, I've decided not to finish my degree. Well, we'll forgive all the debt.
Right.
No, you still owe
You
that.
still owe all that.
And then the percentage of people who never use that degree.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
The number of well-educated baristas at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the argument, well, you'll never, it shows that you can stick to something. So
Right.
employers really like that.
Really?
There's, show me the numbers on that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know they're out there
Right.
Sure.
because I know some, but
Right.
show me the numbers on that,
Yeah.
because I see a whole lot of people getting really good jobs that have no college education.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And so, it's almost like as Christians, parents, we're petrified. We're afraid. I think about Colossians 2. Boy, I'm really showing my cards here. Colossians 2:8, see to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to tradition of men, elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ. So what we do is we don't start with the Lord. We're really starting with the world.
Right.
And is that really the best for our children?
Right.
You know, and I'm not against college.
Right.
You know, I've got a degree.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and the joke that I was going to say is that I said for years is that I'm the only one in my family with a college degree, and they all support me. You know,
Right.
when I was full time in vocational ministry, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and so
That's funny.
And again, I'm not anti-education.
Right.
Right.
I'm not anti-college. Sure, I'm not anti-education. I think everybody should be educated, but I'm not.
This is a school.
Right. Yeah. But I'm not anti-college. I'm just anti the necessity of it, or you'll never be anything.
Right.
Right.
Well, and that's interesting because when Andrew and Sam were talking about trying to come back for a second year, you know, I was all about that first year. I'm like, woo, let's do it.
Okay.
You know, the Lord will provide. That's awesome. And then they both started talking about second year. And I did have to step back for just a second. And I was like, you know, that I'm okay with, I don't know, air quotes, giving away a year. You know, not that I feel like it's a waste, or I don't at all. But 2 years, I'm not sure. You know, it doesn't go toward a degree. It doesn't go toward. So it's like, I don't know, is that really the best use of your time? And this really was just a couple months ago when they were starting to talk about it. And I realized that, like you were saying, that we come at it from an opposite direction. What does the world expect? And then kind of try to fit in, you know, godliness or fit in Christianity into that. However, what a neat testimony it is, and I saw that in Jeff's life too, is that we never had, because of the choices we made early in life, we never had the big houses, the big career, the big, you know, anything. We had kind of an opposite, you know, direction of life. You know, we were 30 years old and had never owned a house, or, you know, 40 years old. And, you know, so it was opposite. It wasn't the same. But I think with Jeff deciding to go to Bible school, it was putting first things first. And so the Lord showed me with Andrew and Sam, maybe talking about the second year, is that here they are at the, you know, prime of their lives, the strength of their youth, you know, these young men that are ready to go out and, you know, do whatever they, you know, they really have the whole world ahead of them, you know, but their choice is to honor the Lord. And how I do believe that that is a really practical way to put your faith in action.
Yeah.
You know, I'm laying my life here, you know, at the strength of my youth, at the, you know, the kind of the cusp of my life. And it's not because they don't know what they want to do. You know, it's not a, you know, oh, I'll just go to camp instead, or, you know, I'll go to school instead of go out. But they could do all these things. And I think Andrew specifically, he has plans. You know, he wants to do things, but feels that this is a good investment this second year. So as a mom, I was like, I believe that shows where their hearts are. Yeah. And that, you know, what a great way to start out your life.
I think so.
That's a cool, you know, for both men and women, you know, Lord, let's get this right. And then we can go out and do the rest of life.
You know, you would expect me to say that I agree with that because, you know, I've been on staff for years.
Right.
But because I've been on staff for years, I've witnessed, you know, a lot of people come through here and watch the Lord completely change them, change the direction they thought they were going in, impact how they went on.
Right.
You know, even if they went on with the same plans they thought they would, just impacting, you know, how they are. And and you just think, my goodness, you know, this is good. Right.
Present yourself a living sacrifice, right? You know, which is my whole life. It's, Lord, what do you want to do with my life? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. For people, you know, getting the beginning of going off on their own, being with the foundation of Christ is my life.
Right.
You know, whether I go on to be a doctor, a lawyer, a carpenter, you know, a housewife, whatever it may be, that Christ is my life. Right. And, you know, my goodness, imagine what the church would be like. You know, if it was made up of people that were solidified in this. Right. You know, which is what the church should be.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, there are plenty of people that would say that I have not used my degree doing doing my work. And yes, but no. Right. I mean, how is, learning about the Lord, knowing his word better and understanding, those things, how is that not a daily use kind of a thing?
Yeah.
That is very foundational.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think what it comes down to is, what does the Lord have for us? And what a great thing for us as parents to be encouraging our children to do is pursue the Lord. Is this what he has for you? Is it college?
Right.
And, if you come out of college and you're not using the degree, well, if that's where the Lord put you, fine.
Right.
That's,
for sure.
Yeah.
There's no regrets there.
Yeah.
If that's where he had you.
Yeah.
Right.
But if we go into it thinking that I have to do this in order to do that,
right.
Then you never end up doing that.
Right.
Well, what was your reason for going?
Right. Take a minute and at least think that there's an option.
Yeah.
Really, what does the Lord want?
Right.
And what honors him most, I think, too.
Yeah.
So with your kids being here, what would you say in watching them, how has it impacted them?
So I think with Emmy, I just see that she's well grounded.
Yeah.
I think that she knows what she believes. She's not real outspoken. She's not a in your face, kind of a person, but I think she's solid and she knows what she believes.
And she got a husband out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
And he went to school here too.
Did,
That's right.
Yeah.
I do have to say that probably the things and the way we see his hill is different than a lot of people because we live 5 minutes away. Right. And so our boys will come home and do their laundry but it's been really fun to have them come home and talk about the things that they've learned, or, during the school year, it was, oh yeah, this is our guest speaker this week. And, it's been talking about this and blah, 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 and just their excitement. And I think that they both, before the year started, were well grounded. It's not like neither one of them came to know the Lord here. Neither one of them, didn't, know him, but you see their faith strengthening.
Yeah, and that surprised me how much they've enjoyed all the classes.
Okay.
They really get excited about what they're learning, and that's been really, really neat.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not only our boys, but our niece Anna came last year, and that was wonderful because she didn't have probably as much biblical knowledge as Andrew and Sam went into it, and she just erupted with excitement. It was like you couldn't quite keep her under wraps sometimes. She'd just start talking about, did you know that this and this? What do you, and it wasn't hard to get her to talk about what she was learning.
Very fun to watch.
Yeah. And at that age where, well, especially with all the cultural things, to be able to apply what they're learning with what they see in culture, because they're just starting, this culture is their culture.
Yeah.
This society is becoming their society.
Right.
So being able to kind of look at it in light of what Scripture teaches has been really neat to see. They're going to fight battles that we didn't have to.
Oh, yeah.
In different things. So it's encouraging to know that they're looking at that through the lens of Scripture. That's exciting and encouraging.
That is exciting. You said that the boys, just being excited about the classes. Would you say that they're not like prone to academic type stuff, more hands-on type things?
Well, Sam's definitely a hands-on kind of a guy.
Yeah. And they were both homeschooled. We homeschooled our kids. So they were both homeschooled. So Andrew is more academic.
Okay.
He, like, all of the academics were pretty easy for him.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah. He's studious, and he doesn't have trouble writing papers and, reading books and
well, that's interesting because okay, so you've got two different
twins.
Yeah, they're twins, but they kind
of they're not identical. Don't anybody get that idea
in any way.
No,
opposites. So, but still, it's interesting that they both would enjoy class so much.
Yeah, it surprised me actually.
And it's for a lot of people. They think his hill is known as to be in Torchbearers one of, if not the most academic.
Right.
And it's but and so to some extent that's intimidating for some people.
Right.
Right.
I can see that.
But it's interesting how even though that may be the case, that the students just really love the classes.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Yeah.
It surprised me.
Yeah.
Well, going back to my college thing, I was not a student. I was not, studious. I didn't like studying, all those kind of things. I did not enjoy my first year of college going to UTSA and SAC and stuff. I loved Bible college. I loved studying the Word of God. I loved the the boys, I know that they're enjoying that. They're enjoying their relationships. That the whole package. But I think that when we allow the Word of God to be alive the way that it is, and because I think a lot of people, the experience of church is stuffy and boring, and so they expect that Bible college is going to be too. They think that the Word of God is, and it's not. It's alive and it's active, and when we start to see, and I think that's a lot of it, as you start to see how it's alive and active, how He is alive and active, how, then it's like, wait a second, this is different than what I thought.
Yeah. So now you've had 3 kids go through 1 year. How's that impacted you?
I think, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is just that, kind of off the cuff prayer, off the cuff wish. Wouldn't it be neat if we could, have all of our kids go for a year to His Hill or to a Torchbearers Center or, and so I think for me, I'm just thankful that the Lord hears those things, the desires of our hearts. And I think He sees those. And, it's not like I've been praying for 5 years for that to happen, but those good things that God just allows to happen without us having to work for them.
Yeah.
And I know that's a little bit maybe shallow but I think that's what I see. I think the fruits of them being here haven't really shown maybe necessarily in our lives yet.
Okay.
For me, I'm encouraged that the boys have enjoyed so much.
So I think our relationship with the boys has changed as they've matured and started to make their relationship with the Lord their own. It's not just our relationship with the Lord, and now they're doing it because mom and dad did, but I really see it becoming their own. And so as that happens, we get to have those neat conversations like you would have with a friend or another, adult, that is not just parent to child, but it is that relationship that changes. And I saw it with my dad, that eventually I got to that point where we talk like adults, like friends, not him just telling me, do this and don't do that and stop being stupid and, those kind of things. So I think those things I'm seeing change. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to parents who are considering sending their kids to Bible school, but maybe on the bubble, for whatever reason? What would you want to communicate to them?
Don't you love your kids? I think the things that we've talked about, that it's easy to think. In fact, there was somebody else was talking about this recently, where this young girl's going, I think I want to go ahead and get my career going. She's 17, and it's like, I want to get on with my life. And it's like, there's a lot of life out there.
Yeah.
I didn't start Bible college till I was 25, basically finished when I was 29, 30. And then we were in ministry for another 5 years beyond that. Like Heather said, we didn't own our first house till I was 35 or 36, where most of my friends had probably been into it for 10 years or whatever. Okay. But saying, I was behind immediately says I was behind according to the world's timetable.
Right.
And so we tend to think that this is the way things that have to be done. And if I don't do it this way, if my kid doesn't do it this way, we're going to be judged. By who? And why do I care? You know, yeah, people are going to, when I went to Bible school, there were people in our church who were going, why? You know, they were seriously like, this is a waste of time. What do you know?
Waste of time, waste of money, waste of everything.
Waste of everything. And why would you do this? And it's like, because the Lord's calling me to do it, you know? But I just think, I think our boys were solid in the word. I don't think that they were in danger of walking away. And I would do it 100 times out of 100 again. So why wouldn't you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is, you know, we've been given resources, right? Life, we've been given money, we've been given time, we've been given days. We're going to invest it in something, you know, so what do you invest it in? Is that, you know, if you start thinking about it, because I think that's probably, it's a waste. You know, is it a waste? Is it a waste of time? Is it a waste of money? Is it a waste of, you know, but you're going to invest that time. You're going to invest that money. You're going to do something with it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, why not invest it in something that's got good, I mean, not just good, but beneficial and life-giving. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking is, for me, it's walking by faith. You don't see the whole picture. You know, I think we like to have it all laid out and written out, and this is what's going to happen, and the money's going to be there. And, you know, but so much of my life, especially recently, has just been walking day by day. Lord, just do whatever you want today. I expect, you know, this, but then it changes. It's like, okay, you know, and you keep thinking that without faith, it's impossible to please God. So, you know, faith pleases him, and walking without seeing the end is faith.
Yeah.
So that's pleasing to the Lord.
Right.
Not easy.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Simple, not easy.
Right.
Yeah. I just, I go back to with Emmy, with the money was not, you know, wasn't there when, you know, it wasn't like it's, oh yeah, we got it all laid out and we got it all saved up. And, you know, I admire those who do have it saved up, and, you know, that's great. But the Lord will take care of all that. And then I was talking about our boys being well-grounded, and I think that Anna, our niece, would say she was not well-grounded, and, you know, it was beneficial for all three of them. It's beneficial for Emmy, all four of them. You know, there was great good in all of it, and whether you're, you know, whatever the spectrum is that you feel like you're on or your kid is on, there's benefit, there's good, you know.
The other thing I have been so thankful for is, we talked about classes and how much the boys have enjoyed that. But the other thing that I've just been so impressed with is how the staff, the community that they create for those students up here has been just a really neat. It's been a blessing.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of you guys on staff.
Right.
But just thanks for pouring into those kids and for, you know, parents who are wondering what it's like. I mean, what an incredible just group of people that really are here just to love kids and to show how you can live in a community and live in Christ. Yeah, they've made great friends with staff. Our boys have, and I know those relationships have been really impactful for them. And the leadership, I think, that Andrew and Sam have seen I think that's been, they talk about that, you know, how those older guys, whether they're second year students or whether they're staff guys, but how those men have really given them somebody to look up to and to. So that's encouraging too. It's not just the Bible teaching, but the community, right? Which I think is different than you would maybe get at a traditional school.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because most of the learning here takes place outside of the classroom.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah. You know, because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
Yeah.
And where it's all being fleshed out.
Right.
and so we need the class time,
Right.
but then we need to step out of class and live it. And you're right, because it's a community here on campus where where the staff and students are together all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm part-time now, so I'm not involved in it like I used to be.
Right.
But even so, it is a pretty intense 9 months.
Right.
Not because of solely what's going on in the classroom, but the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a unique experience.
Yeah. The discipling that happens. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with his hill, you wouldn't recognize, and we, until Heather said something, I don't really think about it that much, but our boys are in the homes of these families all the time.
Yeah.
A lot. And so it's not just, you go to class and then you go hang out with your friends and you come back to class tomorrow, you hang out with your friends. It's these people are pouring into loving on our kids, being loved by our kids, developing those neat relationships that, that are really, really cool. And it's fun, being at Bernie Bible and kind of seeing some of what goes on. I know that there's a number of, I know Charlie has done a ton of weddings. Yeah. But I know a number of the other guys have had that opportunity too, because you're the significant one in somebody's life and relationship, and they're like, I want Kelly, I want John, I want Connor, to do my wedding, because they had such an impact. And it wasn't just in the classroom. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It is really. That's a blessing.
Yeah, it's a blessing for us as staff.
Yeah. And I think it's unique. I don't know if there's a lot of places that you would find that.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other thing I was thinking. Andrew told me, I remember when we first started, and he said, it's so nice to have friends that I can go and have fun with and not get in trouble with, or not have to worry about getting in trouble with. Yeah. Because he's really relational and he loves people and he loves having a good time, but you got to be careful who you do all those things with.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think they've both enjoyed being able to live and have fun and, be part of a community that is safe.
It is a real special group of students. And we've had a lot of guest speakers come through and tell us that there's something different about your students. Being in the middle of Texas, the perception of what this area geographically looks like is hilarious what people think, and we've had students. I remember sitting at a table of new students one time and asking them, how many of you thought you were coming to a desert? And every one of them raised their hand. Right. I said, do you not look? This was before we had website. This is brochure. Do you not look at the brochures and everything that we send to you? Go, yeah, but we don't pay attention to those things. And and so we used to complain years when we were younger on staff. Our staff basically grew up together. Right. Charlie was the oldest one on staff when I came on. He was 34. Right. And so we made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of things. And that's funny now because the staff is young again. Right. And going learning the same lessons. But we used to complain that, why are we only getting 30 students? Why are we only getting 40 students? Why do they always think they're coming to a desert? Why is it, Charlie and I would go and teach at other centers and they'd all talk about, well, I didn't really want to go to his hill because it's a desert. And he's like, what are you talking about?
What desert?
And so Charlie one day, he was telling us, I don't want to hear us complain anymore about this, because what's happening is every year, and at that time it was 50 students, he says, every year we get 50 students coming to us from all over the world that think they're coming to a desert. Wow. And I sat there and thought, oh, wow. Oh, these people they're
coming for the right reasons.
Yeah, these people, there's a special group of people. And and now, the Lord's blessing us with full house, where we're packed. And these people think they're coming to a desert. Right. And, it says something about what kind of people they are. Right. And these are the people the Lord are bringing to us. It's not because, we've done something that's just making it, wow, come to his hill. Right. Yeah. But it's what the Lord's doing. And so, it is a unique place. Yeah. And so anyway, well, I appreciate you guys being here. Before we end, I just want to encourage our listeners, if you haven't already listened to last week's episode, to do so. We interviewed an alumni, Melissa is her name. She is a missionary in Haiti, and she's they are under a lot of persecution right now. They're actually in hiding and have been in hiding for 8 months. And so there's in that podcast we give you some information on how you can help them out. So it's just an incredible story. We've had Melissa on before a couple of years ago, but she's bringing us up to date. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I really encourage you to do so. And if you want to try and help them, you can get in touch with me and I can get some information to you. And that's with my email, Kelly, Kelly, @hishill.org. And Lizzie will be talking about this in a little bit, but we are coming toward the end of camp. The Morris boys are here. They're counselors. One's a counselor and the other's working in media, right?
Right.
Yeah. So they've been through Bible school and now through one of the hottest summers that we've experienced in a while. Yeah. It's really hot. So we're coming to the end of this. We're in our last junior high week, and so we're almost finished. So I ask that you guys be praying for the summer staff as things come to an end and they start to make that transition. Some of them coming back to finish up their first year, some coming back to start a second year. So anyway, would appreciate you praying about that. Well, guys, thanks again for being here. I appreciate you giving me the time.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the His Hill podcast featuring our host, Kelly Doherty, along with Jeff and Heather Morris. We are wrapping up our last week of overnight camp tomorrow and will begin our 2-week adventure of day camp starting this Monday. Please keep praying for us here that we would continue to love the kids well and give God the glory. This summer has been incredibly good, and we are excited to see what the remaining 2 weeks have in store. Thanks again for tuning in to the His Hill podcast today. You've been listening to our host, Kelly Doherty, along with Jeff and Heather Morris. And as always, remember to keep your eyes fixed on Christ. He is the way, the truth, and the life. I'm Lizzie, and we'll see you next week.